today we are moving forward in time a little bit from our last episode to a slightly more contemporary age, and we find ourselves in 2013 looking at yet again another found footage film, but this time it's a British found footage film, which is quite nice because it's a subgenre market which has been monopolized by North America as quite recently. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just nice to see a British filmmaker have a go at it. And the film in question today is called The Borderlands, or if you're of a North American persuasion, you'll know it as Final Prayer, which is a found footage film based around, there's three main characters, but I class it as two, who are Brother Deacon, who's played by Gordon Kennedy, and Gray Parker, who is played by Robin Hill. The third is Father Mark Amadon, who is played by Aidan McArdle. And the story centers around them basically trying to debunk a supposed miracle which has taken place in a church in the West Country. I think it's somewhere in Devon. Yeah. And all three of them are there on behalf of the Vatican. So Father Mark, as you assume, is a priest, and he's kind of the one who goes there. He's the no-nonsense sort of person who believes that any kind of miracle that has been reported is a hoax. Gray Parker is like the techie, so he has all the cameras and the audio equipment, and he's agnostic, which is quite interesting, especially when you look later into the film. So he's sort of the audience's way of looking in, I guess you could say. You know, if someone is agnostic, they can relate to him quite a lot. And then there's Brother Deacon, who just goes as Deacon, but I think he may have been a former priest, or he's certainly religious. And he's worked on this sort of thing as well. And they're all sent on behalf of the Vatican to take a look at this miracle that happens. And it starts off as quite a very sort of casual, quite a charming story, I found. So, nice building up the relationships, and they're all stuck in this cottage together that they stay in, and then they go to the church to have a look. And it slowly just deteriorates and gets more and more eerie and creepy as it goes along. But before we get into it properly, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I don't know if people are watching this and they watched our Exists review, which is like we said earlier, another found footage film. I remember saying that the only real found footage film that's ever done much for me is like Blair Witch, like the OG, yeah. You can call it. And I think like found footage as a genre isn't like, it just doesn't personally do much for me. I can understand its merits, and I can understand it's like how it's like aesthetics people can really enjoy them. And I definitely understand why filmmakers decide to go that route, especially in horror, because of like budget constraints, or just it can feel more personal in certain like scenes, or like can just feel more effective. And I will say this film didn't exactly change my mind on the genre, but I rather enjoyed it. Gonna be honest, some scenes scared the living shit out of me, especially with some 3D surround headphones on, and almost fucking launched them across the room at one point. But yeah, I tell you what, I was expecting nothing. Connor's praise of it kind of got me a little bit excited, and I guess I enjoyed it more than I thought, considering it's from a genre that I'm not exactly fond of. And some pretty spooky moments.
I've got to say, it pains me to say it, but Mark's theory about that baby monitor is probably correct. It's the best explanation.
No, dude. I switched this off.
What?
Dude, the machine is switched off.
When you have a found footage film which establishes a story, but you can also kind of you can understand why it's been filmed, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to be immersed into it. Another thing that I really did like about it was the chemistry between the characters. And I think with found footage films, most of the time it is just going to be a group of people, usually a complete jackass just holding the camera, and everyone else dies, gets picked off. And sometimes I've seen ones where they try to develop the characters, but it doesn't work. But with this one, because there's only three of them, and one of them's an absolute arsehole in Father Mark anyway. Yeah. He's a wanker, but the chemistry between Gordon Kennedy and Robin Hill's characters, Deacon and Gray, respectively, I think it seems so natural, and they're such believable characters. And when I was watching a couple of interviews, not that there's many, because this film is still pretty niche, considering how the fact I've watched quite a few reviews and a lot of people have liked it. I watched an interview with those two, and they said that they were left pretty much entirely to just improvise.
Yeah.
Dude, come
No,
on.
good luck. No, really, it's fine. You go for it. I'll
You
come
and
back.
Misery Girls. No,
I'll come back and help.
All right,
I'll
I'll get the corners done, and then you could do the fun bit. This is filling in the middle.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'll see
All
you around March.
I got a corner.
It's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a smooth ride at the start, but you know, it's quite nice to see them all getting on, and then there's a fucking horrible, distressing bit where a sheep gets set on fire.
Well, that's the. I messaged Connor quite early on, saying when I was watching this, and I said, "Oh, one bit just scared the shit out of me," and that is the bit, Connor, that actually really shook me. Because of the sound.
The fuck is that, man?
Stay back!
I think it's just, this film's just a nice blend of, I can't think of the word, but it's almost just like nothing in terms of like, it's like non-event to completely just, I think that's what I'm trying to say. It goes from kind of 0 to 100 very quickly. It's non-eventful for the first maybe half an hour, 35 minutes, and then once things start to get weird, they get really weird until you get to the end, which is, I just want to say, spoiler warning now, if you're thinking of watching it, it's not nice, especially when you grow to, like I did, care about Deacon and Gray. Deacon calls an exorcist from the Vatican that he's worked with before, and they find out that this church has actually been built on top of a pagan ritual ground, or where a pagan temple used to be, hundreds of years ago, sort of thing. And it turns out that there is some kind of strange entity or pagan deity living underneath the church, and they have an exorcism ritual which goes horribly wrong, where Father Calvino, who's this Italian exorcist, vanishes and presumably dies. Mark also does die as well, and he disappears, and Gray and Deacon are left together, which I found to be quite charming. And like they see what I assume is just an apparition of Mark, which this strange creature or demon, whatever it's meant to be.
It gave me Blair Witch vibes. That bit.
Yeah, very, very much so. And it's kind of projected this apparition of Mark, who they don't really like him, but they want to save him because he's walking into these deep, dark tunnels which Deacon has ended up finding. So much so that they keep following him through these caves until they get to this tiny, horrible, narrow sort of, almost like tube-like tunnel, where they decide, okay, he's gone, we can't get him. And when they turn around to go, it's sealed at both ends, and it turns out that Gray and Deacon have both unknowingly crawled into their demise, because it's meant to be what I assume is the stomach or the digestive system of this strange deity, which they end up being just consumed alive in.
Pulverized.
You see them both kind of burn or melt away to their death, quite horribly as well. It was pretty graphic. They don't leave any stone unturned with that. You see very up close footage of Gray's hand sort of melting, and you see Deacon frothing at the mouth, and it is horrible. And I can't believe I forgot to mention the whole underlying story of this is that yes, whilst this church was built on top of a burial ground, it had been closed for a couple hundred years, and this miracle coincidentally starts when a priest named Father Krellick, he basically kind of tries to get it up and running again for this village, and there's a christening, and that's why they think that it's a hoax, because it hasn't been used for years, and they think he's trying to get people to go back. But it turns out that the person who ran the church before was visited by the Lord, as Deacon says, to build an orphanage. And it turns out that the screaming of the children that you can hear is, I guess, like the pained spirits of these children who turns out was sacrificed a lot of people put the Blair Witch Project on this pedestal because it is, as you said, the original one, and I think I've said it in the Exist one. It did birth the subgenre of it.
Yeah.
But whilst it's up there, I would go as far as to say, so far this is probably, from all the ones I have seen, my favourite found footage film, and it's got a bit of that British tongue in cheek, which I think is sort of missing from a lot of the North American ones. Some of them are still funny. I mean, Grave Encounters is a honourable mention because that's a really good kind of self-aware found footage ghost hunting film. That's up there. That's quite funny. But I don't know. I think this one's just, it's got something a little bit different. You know, with Blair Witch Project, yeah, I liked it, but you can understand why they're being whiny, but I found the woman in it to be really irritating. But with this one, I even though Mark's an arsehole, I think I liked all of the characters. I thought they're all really well written by Elliot Goldner, who's the director and the writer. And this was actually his directorial debut as well. I haven't seen anything else by him, but for a first,
I think this is the only thing he's done.
I think he's done 2 other films I saw.
Oh, really?
When I was looking on IMDb, he's only got 2 other credits on there.
Okay, I couldn't find
them. He may not have even directed them. He might have just been involved. But for a debut, regardless of how many he has done after this, it's really not a bad place to start. I think he did a really good job at writing it, and the fact that he gave them the room to improvise as well to make it all, a lot more natural and less scripted than a lot of them are. I think it's a small triumph in itself. It's got a few little nitpicky things. I think there are a few moments when Deacon was a bit out of character, specifically when he punched that kid around the face. Didn't really think that bit was needed. And whilst it was cool to have the backstory of Deacon, who was involved with another investigation like this, and a few men died, I thought that kind of backstory that wasn't really needed either. I thought they could have done that, because at the start of the film you see footage from that investigation in a place called Belém, in northern Brazil, and that's kind of like a thing which keeps getting alluded to and mentioned throughout the film, but it's not really needed. They're there to do a job on that. But other than that, those are the only 2 things I wouldn't even say fault. I picked them out because no film's perfect, and I don't want to. You've got to be as impartial as possible with this kind of thing. And whilst I love it, those 2 things didn't really think they were needed. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I mean, I love found footage enough as it is anyway, but there are some which are dreadful, like Exist and Willow Creek, and all of the Paranormal Activities bar the first one, which is just about passable in my eyes.
I just want to
way above. I love it.
I just want to, you were talking about nitpicks, and it reminded me of, so one of my big nitpicks with a lot of found footage films, anyway, and I don't know if I can translate this very well with my words, or if it's just something that it might just be me and it's very odd, but maybe not. Okay, so with found footage horror movies, especially with when they're using digital cameras, and this film does it as well. They do a thing where a scene will be building up, and it's building up with tension. It's supposed to scare you, and every scene will end with the camera flickering or going off, or the camera like static and going. And for me, it comes across a little lazy for me personally. Where like in a normal horror movie, you kind of like, you need to end it. You need to end that scene, that string of tension needs to end, and it needs to be done however the filmmaker seems fit. Where in found footage, it's always like, oh fuck it, chuck static on the camera. Oh fuck it, it's interfering with the camera. And I felt like, and it's not just this film is guilty of it. It's like 99% of all found footage films.
Oh, so many of them do it.
I personally find it kind of lazy. Like it's like, oh, it's building up to the scene. Oh fuck it, we'll cut it to static. And even at the end, like as much as I liked the ending, because I thought it was not only quite ballsy and quite brave just to kill off 2 main characters in a horrific way, but also very unique considering the situation they find themselves in. But again, it annoys me where the camera's just cutting constantly. It's like, well, like why is it? I get it's interfering. They're pretty much getting dissolved alive by satanic stomach acid, but I don't know, it's just kind of lazy, and I feel like so many scenes would be more effective if they just let them play out, and like the camera just leave.
Yeah.
Like, why is I just found it a little lazy, and it always has bothered me about films. And I know I'm jumping back to the Blair Witch. I don't want to keep talking about the Blair Witch, but that's why I kind of like the Blair Witch, because the cameras don't do that. It's just, it kind of shows how it is, and it has those small quiet moments, which this film does. But yeah, that's just a nitpick of mine. And I found the film did it quite a lot for me, and I was like, come on, I get you low budget and you've got to hide it to a degree. But sound design wise, just jump into that quickly. Amazing sound design. Really creeped me out, some of it.
Yeah, I imagine watching it the way that you did as well.
Going back to my headphones,
with the headphones, I'd imagine that would have made it twice as scary,
and
if not more.
Yeah, and this film is all about sound. Like you don't see anything really at all. It's all about sound.
No.
There's a few scary visuals, but it's purely like audio horror.
I think Elliot Goldner did a fantastic job at writing it and directing it, and I thought Robin Hill and Gordon Kennedy did a really good job at portraying Gray and Deacon respectively. Father Mark was one of the more forgettable characters, and Father Calvino, you only see him for about 5 minutes of the film, but he was necessary to be there as well. I think everything, apart from the few little nitpicky things that we mentioned about it, was absolutely fine. It's not the most brilliant film in the world, but for found footage, it certainly is up there. And for a British found footage film as well, because there's not many of them, as mentioned before, and I've only seen a couple. Exhibit A from 2007, that's a very strange film, and more recently Host from 2020. I didn't really feel much for either of them, but for this one, I really did like it. So yeah, I think it's a small triumph on Elliot Goldner's behalf, and I would recommend it. I think it's as different as it and unique as it can be in a market and a subgenre which do follow a lot of the same principles, and there's lots of key core features of found footage that you can't make a found footage film without, whether you like them or not, with the flashy, like the cameras like crackling and stuff, or very kind of like shuddery handheld stuff. You're going to get those in them, but I think it stands out as much as it can amongst a group of films which typically aren't that great. So yeah, I think it's well worth the time that you spend watching it.
Give it a watch.